Cast your mind back to 2018. It was a year when the news cycle seemed to move at lightning speed and every day brought a new headline that demanded attention. Tariffs, once a dusty term from history class, something you might have skimmed over in an old economics textbook, suddenly dominated headlines and conversations across the country. Overnight, tariff became the hottest word in America, debated everywhere from newsrooms to family dinners, from coffee shops to online forums. It was on everyone's lips, whether you were a policy expert or just trying to keep up with the news. Why? President Donald Trump put tariffs at the heart of his economic policy, making them a central theme of his administration's message to the American people. No longer just an economic tool, tariffs became a symbol of patriotism and a promise to fix what felt broken in the American economy. They were presented as a way to restore pride and strength to communities that felt left behind. The conversation shifted from academic debates to a national spectacle, America versus the world. Suddenly, it wasn't just about numbers and trade balances, it was about identity, competition, and national destiny. Suddenly, everyone from factory workers to farmers was told they had a stake in the outcome. Small business owners, truck drivers, and even students started paying attention, wondering how tariffs might affect their lives. The issue was framed as a battle, hardworking Americans versus foreign countries stealing jobs. It was a fight for the future of American industry, and for many, it felt deeply personal. For many, tariffs felt like a solution to decades of lost factories and hollowed-out towns. They offered hope that the decline could be reversed, that prosperity could return to places long forgotten. They were pitched as a protective wall to bring jobs back home, to reignite the engines of American manufacturing, and give workers a reason to believe in a brighter future. The debate over tariffs became a stand-in for deeper anxieties about America's place in the world. People wondered if the country could still lead, still compete, and still set the rules in a rapidly changing global economy. Were we still a superpower? Or were we slipping behind, losing ground to rising nations and new competitors? Could we still make things here? Could American innovation and hard work still build the future? Or was that era gone for good? Tariffs became a rallying cry to start winning again. They were more than policy, they were a promise, a challenge, and a hope, all rolled into one. This wasn't just policy, it was a cultural moment, setting the stage for a dramatic economic experiment that would test the nation's resolve and reshape its future. And so, tariffs took center stage in America's story, capturing the hopes, fears, and ambitions of a nation at a crossroads. At the core of the tariff revival was America First. The Trump administration argued the U.S. had been taken advantage of in global trade, especially by China. Tariffs became the weapon to level the playing field, protect American industries, and pressure other countries to open their markets. This was a sharp break from decades of free trade consensus in Washington. The promised tariffs would revive American manufacturing, shield jobs, and restore lost pride. For communities hit by factory closures, this wasn't theory, it was hope. Tariffs became the administration's chosen tool to reclaim America's industrial destiny. So, what is a tariff, and why does it matter so much in the world of business and politics? Simply put, a tariff is a tax placed by a government on goods that are brought in from another country, imported goods. To make it easy, let's imagine you run a classic lemonade stand in your neighborhood, selling each cup for $1. But then, your neighbor, let's call her China, sets up her own stand and starts selling lemonade for just 50 cents a cup. Suddenly, you're losing customers left and right because everyone wants the cheaper lemonade. So, Uncle Sam, representing the US government, steps in to help you out. He slaps a 55-cent tariff on every cup your neighbor sells. Now your neighbor's price jumps up to $1.05 per cup, making your $1 lemonade the better deal for thirsty customers. That's the basic idea behind tariffs. By making imported goods more expensive, they're supposed to help domestic producers, like you, compete and keep their businesses alive. But here's the catch. Who actually ends up paying for that extra 55 cents? It's not the foreign government or the overseas business. Instead, the importer, the company bringing in the lemonade, pays the tariff. They then pass that cost on to retailers, who pass it on to you, the shopper. So, when politicians say another country is paying the tariff, the reality is that American businesses and everyday shoppers are the ones who feel the squeeze at the checkout counter. Tariffs are designed to protect local jobs and industries, but the extra costs ripple through the entire supply chain, from importers to store shelves. In the end, it's the American consumer, families, students, and workers, who end up footing the bill. often without even realizing it. The lemonade stand is a simple way to explain it, but in reality, tariffs affect thousands of products and millions of people, from factory workers to shoppers at big box stores. Tariffs are a tax, one that doesn't just hit businesses but lands right in your shopping cart, raising prices on everything from clothes to electronics to groceries. That's the basic math behind the trade war. A policy meant to protect can end up costing everyone a little more, and that's why tariffs are never as simple or as painless as they might sound at first glance. The 2018 tariffs aim to revive struggling American industries, especially steel and aluminum. By making imported steel and aluminum more expensive, the plan was to boost demand for American-made products. The hope-shuttered plants would reopen, jobs would return, and national security would be strengthened. But raising prices on key materials ripples through the economy. Everything from cars to beer cans got more expensive. Companies like Ford faced higher costs, forcing them to either absorb losses or raise prices for consumers. The intended shield for steelworkers became a new burden for car buyers and manufacturers. The cost of protection didn't disappear, it spread everywhere. The result, a policy designed to help some Americans ended up costing many others. Tariffs, it turned out, were a double-edged sword. The story of tariffs wasn't a straightforward win for America. It was far more complicated, with outcomes that rippled across the country in unexpected ways. Some steelworkers did get their jobs back and a handful of factories reopened. These were headline victories that made the policy look like a success, at least on the surface. But for every winner, there were many more who lost out. The benefits were uneven and the costs were often hidden from view. Car manufacturers suddenly faced soaring costs for steel and aluminum, making American cars more expensive and less competitive both at home and abroad. Small businesses already operating on thin margins struggled to absorb these higher material prices. Many risked layoffs, cutbacks, or even shutting their doors for good. Farmers, however, were hit hardest of all. When China and other countries retaliated, they slapped tariffs on U.S. crops like soybeans, corn, and pork. Export markets vanished almost overnight, prices crashed, and silos filled up with unsold crops, leaving farmers with few options and mounting losses. The ripple effects of the trade war hurt the very communities it was supposed to help, spreading uncertainty and hardship across small towns and rural areas. For many families, the promise of economic revival turned into a daily struggle for survival, as bills piled up and jobs disappeared. The reality is that tariffs created a patchwork of winners and a wave of unintended losers, dividing communities and industries in unpredictable ways. The economic pain was real, and it spread far beyond the factory floor, touching families, small businesses, and entire towns. In the end, the trade war was anything but simple. Its impact was complex, far-reaching, and deeply felt by Americans from all walks of life. In global trade, if you hit, expect to be hit back. The US imposed tariffs. China and others retaliated, targeting American exports like soybeans, pork, and iconic brands. Allies like Canada and the EU joined in, taxing everything from motorcycles to bourbon. American businesses suddenly faced higher costs at home and shrinking markets abroad. Harley-Davidson moved production overseas to dodge tariffs, a bitter irony for a policy meant to protect American jobs. Bourbon exports dried up and small manufacturers struggled. The global economy's interconnectedness meant no one was insulated. Studies showed modest job gains in protected sectors, but bigger losses elsewhere. For consumers, prices rose across the board. The trade war's promise of winning gave way to a reality of higher costs and lost jobs. Retaliation made the pain widespread and lasting. What's the lesson from America's tariff experiment? Trade wars are messy, unpredictable, and hard to win. Tariffs created uncertainty, raised prices, and strained alliances, without delivering big wins like shrinking the trade deficit. The simple story of protecting jobs clashed with the complex reality of global supply chains. Helping a few steelworkers hurt hundreds of thousands in other industries. Economic policy needs precision, not blunt force. The real issues, like unfair trade practices, are serious, but tariffs alone aren't the answer. A smarter strategy would unite allies for targeted action, not go it alone. America's future depends on innovation, education, and smart trade enforcement. The goal isn't isolation, but shaping fair global rules for American workers and businesses. That's the real path to sustainable victory in the 21st century economy.